Hello, and welcome back to CircuitCast. Today's episode is one in a series focused on the hospitality industry. I'm happy to introduce today's guest, Taves Maciel, an executive with a storied career in hospitality encompassing years of experience leading multi-million-dollar hotel and resort operations across the U.S. Currently, he's area general manager and senior leader at Soartress Hospitality. Taves has built and scaled multiple high-performance teams, driven operational excellence, and navigated everything from market downturns to rapid growth. In this episode, we go deep into leadership, culture, and what it really takes to build a resilient hospitality organization at scale. So Taves, thank you and welcome. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
So my first question, Taves, is when you started your career, did you think you would be the expert in hospitality operations that you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. I wasn't really sure. I started off at an airport hotel in Phoenix, Arizona as a shuttle driver for the airport. So I wasn't sure how far I could take it, but it's definitely been a very interesting experience.
So that's pretty interesting. Humble beginnings, right? And was that on purpose? Did you, like, when you started as the shuttle driver, you were like, I totally want to be in the hospitality industry? Or you tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I had bounced around different careers, and I had a cousin who was managing a hotel in Providence, Rhode Island. And her and I just happened to be talking, and she said to me, she goes, I think you would be good at hospitality and get into the hotel business. And I go, like, what are my first steps? She goes, just start applying. I think I applied at 5 different hotels. I had 2 interviews. One was at a DoubleTree and one was at a Hampton Inn in Phoenix. And the one at the DoubleTree was a front desk person. The one at the Hampton was a shuttle driver. And I knew my way around the city, and I thought, this could be a great way for me to kind of get my foot in the door. And the pay was very low, but I found out I could make tips. So I thought if I could make tips, that would be great. So started out just driving back and forth to the airport, and decided that I wanted to learn the front desk. So I asked if someone could show me how to check people in and out, and kind of worked my way up from there.
So a little bit of initiative got you out of the driver's seat, so to speak, and into the driver's seat.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun for me because I love people, and I came up with a whole spiel that I would go from the airport to the hotel. I would start talking to them, ask them what they're doing in town, and I knew I could make my biggest tips if I would take them to a restaurant or to work or wherever. I would give them my whole spiel, and then I would unload their bags. I would run inside, go behind the front desk, and check them in. And several times people go, "Are you the only one working?" I go, "No, the front desk person's in the back. I'm going to go ahead and check you in, though." My idea was that I was starting to watch what other employees were doing and seeing where I felt they could have done better. So I just started doing a little extra to make those tips and to kind of advance my career on my own.
Add some hustle, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely know I needed to hustle. I was married with a newborn, and I was the sole income earner. So I really needed to, make that extra money.
Go.
So I kind of figured out a way to really work my way into taking them to restaurants, then starting to give them recommendations of places to eat, places to go, got me the bigger tip. So that was my goal.
So obviously money is something you're all interested in. But I think, as you already know, I'm sure that's not everything, right? It's good to have money. So what is it? Tell me a little bit. You mentioned it. You love people. You love engaging with people. Tell me a little bit about what it is in hospitality. What drives the passion? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah. Again, I'm a very people person. I'm good at relating to people in all different economic situations, people from all over the place. And I was good at managing people. My family owned a Christmas tree farm back in Rhode Island. And so I had been dealing and managing people for a better part of my teenage life. And it's exciting because in hospitality, there's always something different that happens every day. New situations, new people, problem solving. That is where I thrive. That gives me kind of a boost of energy when there's a problem, or I need to fix something, or make someone feel, they might have had a terrible flight, but then how can I make their time better? How can I make their experience great? So kind of I love that.
It's interesting. Yeah, definitely the problem solving with the empathy built on top, right? Handling all that. So you mentioned two very frontline sort of tasks, right? The shuttle driving from the airport, the front desk check-in experience, the really customer facing. When I did my introduction, I introduced you as an executive and as an operations person. And so tell us a little bit about how what you do today is different. And I suspect that still serves the front lines, but in a different way. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So now as an area manager, responsible for creating budgets, doing profit and loss reviews every month, finding the right team members, right hires to become a good team member. And it's also assessing each person and finding out where their strengths and where areas of opportunity are for them, and making sure that they're in the right department. I've had people that were hired as like a breakfast server that ended up, helping them to cultivate their career and cultivate themselves and learning how to deal with people that would become. I had one that was a breakfast person, became my front desk supervisor. I had a housekeeping manager who is now my assistant manager. So, I love teaching people and I love helping them to find their true potential. And that's kind
Great,
of what I
great.
do now.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So, we, again, going back to the intro I introduced, we talked about surviving in the industry through some ups and downs.
Yes.
And, maybe talk a little bit about the key leadership skills that you think really came to play in a down. Because the downs are always hard. The ups are easy, right? The downs are that's really where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, it's really being able to analyze numbers, being able to see opportunities for improvement, and then it's also being very flexible. So things change all the time. So and being in hotel management, you're kind of on call 24/7, and you have to be able to answer the phone and 1 o'clock in the morning because a pipe broke, or it really is being flexible and not thinking that this is not a 9 to 5 job. This isn't a Monday through Friday. This is 365 24/7 job. You just have to be ready to deal with whatever situation is coming up. In a downturn, sometimes it's tough decisions where you have to cut hours, you have to cut people or reduce schedules. And I have empathy for those employees because I know that they've got bills and they've got things they've got to deal with. But then also my responsibilities are to the ownership and the investors. So I have to be able to assess where we have to decrease scheduled hours. And that might mean that I have to cover those hours. Not that I want to do that all the time, but sometimes you just have to.
Well, and certainly in that downturn, it's a little bit like the old airline thing where you're supposed to put your own mask on first, right? Because if you don't stay healthy, you can't help the person next to you, and
That's true.
right? So, yeah, okay. So let's talk a little bit about what you see is happening right now when we're thinking about Soartress, for example. What is going on with Soartress? Are you in growth mode? Are you in sustain mode? What's happening with the company? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely Soartress is in growth mode, looking for opportunities. It's definitely a buyer's market in hospitality, because was inflation and things were happening in 2024. And, the government shutdown affected a lot of hotels in military markets, including these. And but they are definitely looking to expand, and they've purchased hotels here recently, and they're looking for any opportunity where it makes sense for them to buy, and what they could turn those hotels into, or renovate, or like we did these hotels.
So that's actually an interesting lead in. So when you talk about taking a hotel and basically renovating it, bringing it new life, and kind of getting it ready for the next stage of its life, if you will, what do you see are commonly the biggest challenges that come with that event?
Yeah, the biggest challenges, I would say, is getting through renovations on a timely manner and getting them. We went through in 2024. The plan was initially to be done before our busy season, which is typically summer, but delays in supplies and having them delivered on time and finding the right people to do those tasks uh, put a big delay on it. So it being flexible enough to be able to pivot where we thought we would be finished, but then we had to kind of take a different look at it and go, all right, we're still going to be under renovation when it's really busy. How are we going to, between these two hotels, how are we going to accommodate those guests and things that we've already booked? And we did a lot of back and forth between each hotel. They might have been booked at one, but that wasn't quite ready. So then we would have to shift people down to the other hotel. And that was probably a doing renovations is everybody thinks it's easy. Oh, you just have the construction crew come in and they do the work, but it's also coordinate with them, making sure the work is to the quality that we're looking for. I hope that answered that question properly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe just pick on those two hotels as an example. I mean, how old were the original properties, and when you did renovations, what was the extent that you were looking at?
Yeah, these were built in 99, and they had been through renovations in the past, but with this brand, really, it's every 7 years you have to do a full reno where you bring it up to the current standards and change the way that everything is. So they were older looking. Through the pandemic, I think there was kind of they put a pause on all of the reno requirements from Hilton. But when they were purchased, we were on the upswing out of the pandemic, and they were like, you are required within this time frame to get all of this done. It was everything. It was lobbies, breakfast areas, restaurant, rooms, meeting space. Everything had to be completed to Hilton standards.
So these are Hilton branded hotels
They are.
owned and operated by Soartress. Is that how the
That's
relationship
correct.
works?
Yes.
Maybe, because actually that touches on a really good, interesting topic. And I'm sure people, really in the hotel business in particular are very familiar with this whole ecosystem, but lots of people outside don't necessarily get a view to that. Tell us a little bit about sort of the ownership strategies and sort of how the brand plays to the owner plays to the brand and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So Hilton there's pages worth of standards, everything that has to be served in the restaurant, like what foods you can offer, what amenities have to be in the guest rooms, what the beds have to look like, what the television offerings have to be. It's really everything. What the front desk looks like, the things that you're supposed to be saying at the front desk are all Hilton standards that we have to follow.
Or prescribed.
And it's not like an independently owned hotel where you can kind of do whatever you want. This is very specific. And what you're offering our Hilton Honors members when they come and check in, the things you're supposed to be saying to them. It's very specific. And that's kind of the structure I really like. I've worked for other hotel brands where the standards weren't as stringent, and it leaves too much to someone else's discretion, where when you have a large brand like Hilton is and known worldwide, it's very structured and it's very specific. I thrive in those kind of situations.
And are these flagship Hilton hotels or are they some of the secondary brands?
It's Hilton Garden Inn and Homewood Suites are two of the largest brands. I think Hampton is the largest brand within the Hilton
Unit
portfolio.
volume wise. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So when you let's just sort of step out and look at the industry from a different perspective. You mentioned that it's sort of a buyer's market at the moment. What, in your perspective and experience, where are we overall? In a upswing, the whole industry, or where do we stand?
Yeah, I would say we are in an upswing. There was a lot of hotels. I can talk about this market for sure. In Colorado Springs and in Colorado in general, they're building hotels. There's been over the last maybe 4 years, I would say 15 to 20 that have opened up in Colorado Springs, and they're just in the area that I'm in. I think there's another 5 slated to go in, different brands, but they're building. So it is an upswing, and with Hilton, large worldwide known brands like Hilton, they're always coming up with different brands that they're pushing out there. Like Spark is one of the newest ones that they came up with. It's kind of a step below Hampton Inns to more of a discount market. So it is much more difficult in the market to get your piece of that pie of the amount of business that's coming in. And you really have to hustle, where maybe 15, 20 years ago, just having the name on the outside of the building, people would just reserve. But now, because it's been more saturated in the market, you have to have a great sales team that's out there hustling to find some business and getting our fair share of that.
Interesting. Maybe just if you can tell us a little bit about what that looks like. What does a sales team at a hotel do? How do they spend their time and energy?
Yeah,
Or
it's a
do we
great
know?
Yeah, I do know. We have weekly meetings talking specifically about it. So currently I've got 3 salespeople. They all have different segments that they're going after. I've got one who specifically is sports teams and government business. So getting involved with organizations like the Chamber and Visit Colorado Springs and finding out what's coming into town or into the market in the spring, summer, fall, winter, and then reaching out to those organizations to see if they have made a decision on what hotels they're going to be selecting and what area of town they're in. Government agencies are a little bit harder because they're pretty locked. Like the buildings that they're working in are very locked down. You can't get into them unless you have an appointment. So it's really digging into finding out who the contact person that secures travel for people traveling into town or coming into Colorado Springs. So it's a lot of on the phone, on the computer, searching what's coming up, getting involved with those types of organizations I mentioned. And then, for like some of our local negotiated rates is being like getting involved with what new construction companies are coming into town to build something like a Costco or like a big box store, like Amazon. They're building a new warehouse, and then finding out who the construction company is. And then when those executives are coming into town, where would they need, executives that work for these large organizations? Where would they be staying? And do they have travel needs? And it's really getting past the gatekeeper, who is that person answering the phone, and really getting past them because they're the ones that are kind of keeping all the solicitor phone calls away, but finding out who the key contacts are, making contact with either with by email or through LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is a great tool for our that one of our salespersons use to find out. Once we find out who's coming into town, then we start looking onto LinkedIn to see who those decision makers are, reaching out to them through that and just offering some services to them, offering, hotel reservations or meeting space or whatever they might need. And then
Good
another,
old fashioned sales hustle. Listen,
yeah,
don't tell me all your tricks because
and then wedding venues, going and visiting them,
right,
weddings that are coming into town, or if they're doing a bridal show, and then seeing how we can
make a
partnership with
block
them.
offer or something to them, and yeah, interesting, interesting. So if you when you think about your day to day or your company's day to day, if you had a magic wand and you could solve one big problem in your organization, problem, challenge, one thing, you could do one thing with the magic wand, what would that one thing be?
That's a great question. Yeah, great question. Yeah. I suppose what I mentioned earlier is really getting our fair share of the business that's coming into town or into Colorado Springs, into the market would be there's so many organizations and so many of those little boxes to check. It's knowing I guess the magic one would be knowing which one would be that like star that we could get that would really make a huge difference in long-term business. Like if it's an airline that is going to be looking for new hotels, finding that right contact to get them to come and tour our hotel. So I think that's probably the most difficult and most time consuming is getting to the right person that is the decision maker to get them to come stay at the hotel. So, there is that larger picture of all the business that's coming in. And then we have to then dig into each of those pieces and find the right person, where somebody who has been on the market for a longer might already know who that contact is. So we have to kind of beat them to the goal line.
Okay, let's change gears a little. There's been a lot of discussion in many different places about staffing and the challenges of staffing, particularly in this economy, right? And some of the changes that have been going on with regards to work visas and so forth. How is that impacting your operations?
I would say, when I first got into this business, there wasn't, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but there wasn't as much scrutiny on doing like e-verify and to check their IDs. It was more of a handwritten piece of paper where I'm just putting down their license number, their social security number, and then we hire them. In the current economy, the way that it is now, we use electronic e-verify that it checks all that to make sure that they're legal to work in the United States. On top of that, everyone I have seen at least over the last 6 years, maybe longer, where minimum wage just keeps rising and rising and rising. So dealing with people, I think I might have mentioned this. I love dealing with people, but it's also one of the most difficult parts of the job is because you've got people from all different backgrounds. And I I can teach someone how to use a computer and how to check someone in and out, but what I can't teach them is how to deal with people. And
Hmm.
with electronics the way they are and kind of being on social media or just texting, that skill level of interaction, face-to-face interaction is not as prevalent as it used to be. And so somebody who has never dealt with the public, it's hard to teach them how to like the customer service aspect of it. So they might do a great on an interview, But then once they get in front of people, they panic. They've not ever had to deal with someone that was maybe a baby boomer or, Gen X, and they're a Gen Y or Z, and they've just not had that kind of interaction. So I think that has been a difficult part, is finding the right people, like I mentioned earlier, putting them in the right place, and then finding out what, and helping to cultivate where their strengths are. I mean, sometimes some of the people that are the most shy or introverted, help to bring that out of them. So sometimes it's hit and miss finding those right people. They,
Yeah, it's always a treasure hunt, right?
yeah. So I would say staffing has been starting during, this whole pandemic thing, and people being paid to stay at home, and then coming out of it. Some of them just didn't want to come back to work. So finding really reliable, hardworking people, I think, has been a huge challenge.
How many properties does Soartress?
13.
13.
And I think they have some partnerships in other ones that are not managed by Soartress.
So that's how many rooms under management?
Oh, I probably have the actual stats somewhere, but I can't remember
Yeah.
off the top of my head. But and they're, most of them are out more towards the East Coast. And these are the only two here out West.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
this Hilton Garden is 154 rooms. The Homewood Suites is 127.
Yeah. So is that typically that sort of mid-sized property,
Yeah,
the
that's
sort of thing the Soartress? Yeah.
they, I think they've got a couple of them that are over 200. I think it's just a few of those.
Yeah. Interesting. Sounds like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question is, when you look forward in time, what do you see as your prognostication of what the industry is going to be facing, what's good, what's bad coming up over the next, say, couple of years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as prices continue to rise, I know that energy, fuel prices have come down, but things are still a little bit out of control with price, with cost of living is going up. Housing, like the housing market in Colorado Springs has grown exponentially over the last several years.
General.
So where I was going with that is, it's also a challenge is balancing the how much we're paying in wages versus more of the automation side. So with a lot of hotel companies now, you can check in on your phone and then have a digital key show up on your phone, and you really don't have to interact with anybody coming into the hotel. And I think it's moving more towards the automation side, where guests, if they don't want to come to the front desk, and you never see them, they don't come down for breakfast, they check in on their phone, they check out on their phone, and it's less of the interaction portion. So I see it more continuing down that path. I remember going to a conference years ago, and they talked about having those self vacuuming machines in rooms where you would just turn on at some point. So you would have, even cleaning a room would be less about the room attendants and more about automating it. So I really see it going that direction even further. So I've been doing this for over 30 years. Before, there was, that was unheard of. No, you want to have someone great at the front desk that's going to greet them with a smile. People don't always want that.
Interesting. That's very
Yeah.
interesting because, hospitality and people
Yeah.
seems to go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
I promised that was the last question, but then you touched on a couple of things that I want to dig into
Sure.
a little bit. And one of them is, you talked about the technology, right? You talked about automations. And when we think about a hotel property, there's likely many places where automations can come to play. But I wanted to just ask a little bit about your perspective on this crazy thing called AI, and how you think that is going to come to play and impact the hospitality business.
Yeah. So I know a lot of my colleagues use AI to write, every month we have to write a critique of the P&L statement. And I'm just kind of now dipping my foot into that, where I was just all about doing it all myself. Now it is, you put in all the data, and then it spits out to you a critique of where the overspends, where you can cut costs, where it's becoming less about me figuring out on my own, where I just plug it into an AI and it spits out an answer, and then I just copy and paste that into that report. So I see it going more that way, where less of kind of cutting down on my reporting time and a lot of time spending in front of the computer, and more about interacting with people. And
It's
I
kind
think
of
it's,
funny, right? It's
yeah,
almost the opposite of what we just discussed, right?
yeah, really, it is,
So
that,
so AI is potentially freeing you up to do actually what is probably the more valuable part of the job in the grand scheme anyway, right? Which is serving the
yeah.
clientele.
For me, that is what I love about this, is I love interacting with my employees. We love have fun at work and also getting work done, and then, but also interacting with our guests. I love talking to them about whatever's happening for the day, but AI can kind of help me to get away from the computer, which I hate anyway. Sit in front of my computer all day long is not my favorite thing. And getting out and really interacting and bringing back some of that face-to-face interaction, not forgetting that piece, because everything is becoming so automated and kind of anonymous over the internet. I want to get back to what really drives my passion, which is people. So maybe that'll free up that reporting side so I can get out there more and really do what I love.
That's great. This is all terrific. Taves, thank you so much for your time today. I just want to recap a little bit. We talked about your journey from behind the steering wheel on the shuttle bus to where you are today, running a group of hotels. We talked a little bit about the journey of acquiring and upgrading, updating an older property, and the challenges of doing it under the umbrella of a brand and what they prescribe for the way you have to operate. You mentioned the challenge of sort of the operations challenge, and you touched on something really subtle in there about you're critiquing the behavior and you're looking for those operational opportunities to cut cost or to do things more efficiently. And we talked about the potentially future of automation in the hospitality space and some of the challenges that are facing the industry, both in terms of staffing, in terms of saturation of the marketplace. So these are all great. Thank you so much for your insights, and
Yes,
I look forward to talking to you another time. Perhaps we'll revisit in a while and see what's happened.
sounds good. It's been a pleasure doing this with you and having a conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it. That was Taves Maciel from Soartress. They own and operate several hotels around the United States, two in Colorado Springs, where Taves is the area manager. Thank you for sitting and visiting with us and CircuitCast today, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.